Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to get started with your new Signature Series BFR bands. So the arm bands and the leg bands both essentially function the same. They have this one-way air valve where when you pump it up and disconnect it, the air will actually stay in the band. It won't lose any air pressure until you reconnect it and then release the valve, which I'll show you how to do. So the best way to do this is really to use first the air pump, connect it first. So take it, and it actually helps a little bit to press the button on the valve and just connect it first so that it's all the way on there before trying to put it on your arm. Then you're going to want to loop it through. You'll notice that there's a little bit of an overlap here. This is actually intentional. We did this overlap here on the arm bands and leg bands to help get more 360-degree pressure and have less of a gap in between. You'll then slide it on the arm to the top of the arm, tighten it. Doesn't need to be too tight. And the goal here is to just notate what marker you see here. So for me it's about 2.5, so that way I know that on the other arm I should also put it at 2.5, so that way the position and the base pressure is symmetrical from side to side. And obviously the same would be true if I was doing this on the legs. You'll notice on the hand pump you're going to close it, so make sure you turn it so that it's closed. So you're going to turn it towards you to close it, and then you'll start pumping. And you want to make sure your arm is very relaxed. And if you're doing this on the leg, same thing, you want to make sure your leg is relaxed. Because if I do any pressure, if I flex the arm, for example, it's going to influence the pressure on the gauge. So you want to make sure your arm is very, very relaxed, and you're going to pump it up to the desired pressure. Then when you're there, you'll just press the button, disconnect it, and then do the same exact process with the other band for the other arm. And then when you're all done, you can actually just remove it. You don't have to worry about trying to plug it in while it's on your arm. That could be a little bit tricky. And then again, when you're all done, to release the air, you'll want to just plug it in. And then take the hand pump, and then now you're turning the valve away from you to open it. And you're just going to apply a little bit of pressure onto the band itself to just push the air out. And that's it. When that's all done, I can disconnect it and you're good to go. Okay, let's go over some frequently asked questions. So one of the most common questions that I get is, what should the pressure be? So when I'm actually pumping this up on the gauge, what pressure should I go to? And a lot of the studies were kind of all across the board. They were anywhere between 50 to as high as I've seen 160 millimeters of mercury in pressure. But I recommend actually going much less than you think. I say, you should probably start around 50 millimeters of mercury or so, more or less. That's a good range to start in. A lot of people, I think, in my opinion, go much tighter than they need to initially. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you do any kind of strength training, you're actually internally occluding. Anytime you achieve that muscle pump from a warm-up or from a workout, you're increasing that internal pressure. And so if you start out tight or too tight, it's definitely going to be too tight once you start doing some reps and sets. So start light, start a little bit with less pressure than you think, and like I said, around 50 millimeters of mercury is an average place to start for most people. And another question I get commonly is, how do I know if I have the right pressure throughout the workout? And one common way to measure this is either A, with perceived tightness. So they say on a scale of 1 to 10, not to be confused with the numbers on the band. This is for, just measuring where the position of the band is. But on a perceived scale of tightness, 1 feeling the least tight and 10 feeling the most tight, it should feel like a 5 to a 7. And again, like I just said, I would err on the side of less tight. So maybe start at a, feeling of about 5. And then, see how it feels. And this is something you should monitor throughout the whole workout. Another thing that you could measure is something called capillary refill. So, you have capillaries in your limbs, and what you want to look at is if I press on my hand, for example, if I press on my finger, I'm going to be pushing the color and the blood out of the hand. And I want to see how fast does it take for the color to refill. And what you should see is it should take a couple seconds for the color to refill. If it takes more than that, then it's probably too tight. And if it takes less than a second, for example, it's probably not quite tight enough. So that's a good measure to see, once you get started and throughout the entire workout, check and see what that is. So that way you can make sure that you've achieved optimal pressure and that you're maintaining optimal pressure throughout the whole workout. And then lastly, another common question I get is what's the correct position of the bands. You always want to wear the bands at the top of the arms whenever you're doing anything upper body, whether it be biceps, chest, back, anything upper body, you're always still going to wear them at the top of the arms. If you're doing anything lower body, you're going to wear them at the top of the thigh, so just below the gluteal fold at the very top of the leg. No matter what you're doing, whether it be calves, quads, glutes, doesn't matter, it's always at the top of the legs. And then the last question I get is, do I need to take the air out if I wanted to, for example, take the bands off in between sets? Typically, we don't really recommend taking the bands off in between sets, but some people do like to do that. So if you do want to, for example, do a set, take the bands off, and then go back to your next set or exercise, you do not have to deflate the band in order to do that. You can, depending on your body density and your body type. It might be easier for you or more comfortable for you depending on what kind of pressure you have in the band to do that. But for the most part, you don't need to, because again, the band is going to hold air. So if I pump this up, it's going to keep air in it. Even when I disconnect it, it should hold the air. So when I undo it and take it off, the band still has air in it. So the band is still pressure filled and ready to go. And the beauty is with this band, the really nice thing that makes it easy to do this is the numbers. Without the numbers, it might be a little bit harder to not deflate it in between sets, but the fact that there's numbers on it, if you knew that you were at a 2.5, like in my case, then I could just go right back to a 2.5. And I knew exactly that the air is still in the band, so I should still be at the same pressure I was when I pumped it up and set it up to begin with. So you don't have to necessarily deflate it to do that. So those are the frequently asked questions I get. If you have any additional questions, feel free, email us at info, that's info, at bfrbands.com, and we'll help you anytime. Thanks again.